Hello and welcome back to Let's All Laugh At, the football podcast that thrives at someone else's expense. It's the first one of the new year, 2021, and coincidentally, it's our 25th episode. So, quarter of us teanery here to celebrate with Dan, Johnny, and Andrew on this episode. So, how you guys doing?
Yeah,
All good, yeah, happy anniversary.
Yes, indeed.
25th episode.
Of this one that we're doing right now, yeah. I mean, obviously we had the past iteration like years ago, but since we started in June, I think it was. Yeah, I remember Andrew just messaged me and say, "Hey George, fancy starting the podcast up again?" And then we did. We got these two bozos involved eventually, and then and then here we are now. So yeah,
Very American word.
yeah. But okay, so to mark this occasion, well, Johnny, you've got a very happy way to mark this occasion because we're starting with your team, Arsenal, and you know we've had our laughs at you in the past few weeks, but that all seems a thing in the past now. 4-0 win against West Brom, your third straight win in the Premier League, I believe, and up to the dizzy heights of 11th place. So yeah, how'd you make that?
Well, I mean, it was a good performance last night against West Brom. West Brom are dreadful. Let's make that absolutely clear. They are utter dross. Big Sam might have kept some teams up, but he's not keeping them up because they're going down. They're awful. But apart from we played very well last night. Really impressed again with Bukayo Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe. Yeah, it was a good performance. Another clean sheet. 3 wins in a row. 11th place. God, we're flying. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But no, we're going okay. So we've got some winnable games coming up. We've got you, both of you. We've got Newcastle and Palace coming up.
Yeah.
So I mean, if it's all if buts and maybes in football, but if we win them games, then we're right up there. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I certainly think you've got a good chance. I mean, it depends for our game, it depends which Palace turn up. I think we've got a chance if we actually do our thing and, you know, keep things tight and counter-attack without the likes of Zaha and Eze. But if we play anything like we did against Liverpool and Villa, you'll have no problem whatsoever. But as for, I mean, we talk all the time with Arsenal about, it's hard to avoid talking about the younger players and how instrumental they're going to be to the rebuild and all that. And they've proven it yet again. I mean, the likes of Saka, I mean, he's not necessarily that younger player, but Kieran Tierney as well, both scored fantastic goals during the game. And they seem to be really kicking on this season.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Saka is going from strength to strength. And I love Kieran Tierney. He's a proper fullback. A big fan of him. For me, Emile Smith-Rowe as well. I mean, a lot of talk about Mesut Ozil coming back into the team, but I think Emile Smith-Rowe he's cemented that place now. I don't see if there's any small chance of Ozil ever coming back into the team. I think that's gone. Because Emile Smith-Rowe he's every time I watch him, he just gets better and better. I know he's still only very young. I know it's only West Brom. Don't get me wrong, but you can only beat who's in front of you. And he was superb again, Emile Smith-Rowe, and he's getting better and better.
Yeah, so I'll bring in the more devil's advocate voice of the Arsenal conversation, Andrew. You know, with Arsenal's form has definitely upturned, but as Johnny said, it is only West Brom, and the teams they've played, aside from Chelsea, although you can argue, particularly with today's result, Chelsea are, you know, very much on a downward slide as well. You know, what do Arsenal still have to do to convince, you know, as many people as possible that, you know, they can mount a challenge for at least top 6 again?
I mean, I think they've definitely got a chance of coming top 6 now. They're only 3 points behind Chelsea. So they've got a great chance of coming in top 6. They're moving the ball better. They're doing all these things with Aubameyang not even playing well at all. So if you imagine if Aubameyang started to hit form and started to work well with Lacazette, then they'd be even better. So I think they've got a good chance. I mean, in the Premier League, all it does is take a little run to get you going.
Yeah.
And then once you get a run going, you've got a great chance. And to be honest, you've got to remember, Arsenal's team is very expensive, so they should be doing well. I think that's why we were all surprised at how they underachieved before. But I've got to say, for Emile Smith-Rowe, I saw someone saying he's the Kaka from Croydon or something like that.
He is a South London lad. Unfortunately, we missed out on him. But, you know, if we can start getting players of his quality through the academy of any kind, then we're in a good position. But I won't make this about Palace just yet.
Keep them for a year and then sell them.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's a bit longer than that. But if Zaha's anything to go by, we'll keep them a lot longer than a year. Or buy them back for £3 million. Either way.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Smith Rowe in particular. I mean, one of the goals for Saka was just reminded me so much of Wenger Arsenal at the time with the way they cut it back, and it was just a beautiful move. You know, that's the Arsenal that people enjoy watching. That kind of Wenger Arsenal. So if Arteta can get that, because the style of play under Arteta has been terrible, but that game against West Brom was really some like kind of vintage Arsenal. So it was good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan, to sort of bring you in on this as well, in terms of, I mean, we've mentioned before that Liverpool have had similar struggles in mid-table, for lack, I suppose you could say. But they were able to string some form together, and then it just sort of, there's always talk about them getting top four. Particularly, I remember, I think it was 2014-15, the season after Suarez left, and then you won a bunch of games under Rodgers, and it sort of petered out at the end of the season. I mean, obviously there's the danger of that for Arsenal, and there's still a long way to go. But what are the sort of signs you can see from them compared to what you've seen from Liverpool in the past situations?
Yeah, I think I made the comparison a couple of weeks ago on here from Liverpool in years gone by to Arsenal current plight. And I always expect them to come good like they have done, obviously, in the past couple of weeks. Comparatively, they've given the youngsters a go, haven't they, like you said, recently, because the Aubameyang thing wasn't really working. And obviously Smith Rowe and Saka have come in and done well. We had a similar sort of era with, I don't like mention his name, but Raheem Sterling coming in as well. So there are similarities there, I suppose. It was quite exciting to watch because youngsters don't have fear, like the Arsenal, they were on such a downward spiral, and they were picking the same team every week. They're going out there having just been beat, whereas you bring Smith Rowe in and Saka and other youngsters. I think that Balogun's been in around as well, and they haven't had that same defeat. They haven't got that fear. So it's obviously worked, and then you can integrate the likes of Aubameyang back in and what have you. But yeah, like I never expected Arsenal to be anywhere near relegation, even though they were flirting with it for a week. But it's the same at the top and bottom of the Premier League at the minute. Teams are flirting with the title, and then suddenly they're 9th. And it's similar at the bottom. Arsenal flirting with relegation, suddenly they're 11th. So it's a mad league this season. We've just got to get through it and see who's on top and who's at the bottom at the end of it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to look at it. But I'm sure, given the history of Johnny on the show and his team, he's going to be reveling in it for as long as possible.
Yeah, until we lose to Palace, then yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say they're 11th still? They're not in the Champions League spots. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of the Palace game, I mean, like you said, I really think it could go either way. I mean, it's a couple of weeks from now, so it should be a good. We've got a bit of a time to rest for it, so hopefully, we're up for it. I just want us. I think Arsenal are there for the taking this season, even on their good run. So I just hope we give it a good performance. Not necessarily give it a go, because I think that could, as we've seen with Liverpool, that could come back to bite us. But
we'll get onto that, I think, with you.
we will get onto that. But I'm going to postpone it as much as I can, and we'll move on to you next, Andrew. Because I mean, there's not too much to talk about. I mean, there was a hard-fought point against Dan's Liverpool just before New Year's, and then today, the loss against Leicester, 2-0 down, then Andy Carroll pulling one back, first goal since returning, and couldn't get the win, unfortunately. So it's a bit same old, really. I mean, I feel like I say that every time, but I suppose that sort of sums up where you are right now.
Yeah, it wasn't a good performance to be honest, but fair play to Leicester. They've got a great away record this year. They've come to us 2 really good, well-taken goals, cut through runs and then cutbacks, one from Albright and one from Vardy. I think today we didn't play well. We only played well really when Andy Carroll came on and caused some disruption. But it's kind of like Leicester are cut, much better side than us. Really didn't really build on the Liverpool performance in spells that we did play well against Liverpool, but it's we really need St. Maxim to come back because we can't really cause these teams much of a threat. He's so important to us, to our game plan and everything like that. Steve Bruce has a game plan, but yeah, I mean, weird with COVID because like the teams below us and everyone is having games in hand, and it's a really weird season. Some teams on 15 games, some teams on 17 games.
I think Newcastle themselves are on 15 games. I think they had the games against Villa and someone else I can't remember postponed.
It's going to be a weird, because this could keep happening over January and February. So we could have teams like it is in Scotland at the moment, where Celtic has 3 games in hand on Rangers. We could have that in the Premier League, and as this, when it comes to these games towards the end of the season, it could be really interesting generally, because you'll see a lot of overtaking at the time.
Yeah, I think with the way the COVID situation in the country is going, I think we could be a lot more of those, certainly over the next couple of months. But I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, it could be, again, you get those teams that play games in hand, they'll more than likely play them towards the end of the season. And once those games are played, all of a sudden, the table could change like overnight. So I think you're right. It could. I'm hoping that it mixes up the relegation battle in particular as much as possible, without dragging us into it, obviously.
Yeah.
And also the title race as well. I mean, I genuinely couldn't say where it's going. I think there's at least 4 or 5 teams in with a genuine shot of winning. I mean, like some more than others, but I think there's a lot of teams you can't rule out as well, given the way the season is going.
Arsenal.
Well, I mean, if they carry on the form they have, you never know. They could be in and around there within a month, so you never know. But yeah, we mentioned Liverpool. On to you, I suppose, Dan. It's not been the greatest festive period for you, it's safe to say, but given that you haven't talked about it since you've been on the show, I would be amiss to not talk about that, for want of a better term, complete and utter battering of us before Christmas.
Yeah, obviously it's difficult to look back on that with much glee after what's gone since.
Oh, thanks. It's good to know. Good to know it brought you so much glee. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? That had been coming. I think I said to you in the chat, like, that's been coming from Liverpool for a while. We create a lot of chances most games, and we don't put a lot of them away, as we've shown since Newcastle.
So you're saving them all for us, and then you haven't bothered to score any since. Yeah, this just gets better and better.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what's happened. We used up all our goals on Palace. Listen, I mean,
well, you don't play us until the final day of the season, so I hope you'd find it your touch before then.
Well, hopefully the league's wrapped up by then, but we'll see.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's obviously not ideal. Things aren't. We currently have no centre backs, so it's not fantastic. Yeah, the Palace game was brilliant. We were perfect pretty much in every sense. There was 10 minutes in the first half where it was quite even, but outside of that, we were clinical. We were just clinical. I don't think Palace did a lot wrong, to be honest. You were a bit naive.
Yeah. We conceded 7 goals and didn't score any. I think we did a lot wrong, to be honest with you. Even if you are the best team in the country, you don't concede 7 goals at home with your heaviest home defeat of all time by being good. We were shite.
You were, yeah. I think as a you didn't make many mistakes. I think you were a bit naive. I think a lot of the time you really tried to press us and even play out from areas that you just can't really do against Liverpool. Like, you're seeing what West Brom and Newcastle have done since. It's very pragmatic, and they don't try and play us at their own game. I think Palace tried to do that, and that's a bit dangerous, as we've seen. But yeah, listen, things aren't ideal. We're top of the league, better skin of our teeth, just. In terms of the title race, I'll be dead honest, we don't win it unless we sign a centre-back in January. No way. It's not possible. We can't. You can't have no centre-backs and win the league. It's not going to happen.
Bold claim there. Okay, interesting to hear. But I agree with you. I mean, it's crystal clear you need a centre-back. And as for, touching on what you said before, I said it on the podcast already, but I think you're right. I think in terms of individual performances, like, there weren't that many howlers apart from Patrick Van Aanholt, but we don't talk about him anymore. But I think you're right. I think tactically, ironically, it was the complete opposite of a Roy Hodgson performance. Like, normally these are the games we sort of try and stifle. And, I saw so many Palace fans say, well, I don't care what the score is, just give it a go. Like, well, there you go. We gave it a go. We got spanked. Yeah. So I hope you're happy. I mean, listen, it works against Spurs. It should have worked against Chelsea had we tried it, because Chelsea have proven today they're there to be got at. So if we just swap the two around, if we played like we had against Liverpool against Chelsea and played like we had against Chelsea against Liverpool, the results could have been much different. I mean, had we sat back, I still don't think we'd have won, but it would have been 2 or 3 and not 7, in my opinion. Like,
yeah, at least 3 or 4 of them goals came from you being overzealous and trying to play in a game whereby you probably shouldn't have done.
Yeah, I mean, we'll touch more on that topic in general later on, but it is important for us to recognise, when to go for it and when to be cautious and shut up shop, and we didn't do that. And so, but anyways, on a more positive note, after the terrible Christmas period that we had, earned ourselves a 1-1 draw against Leicester. All right, it was a very changed Leicester team. It wasn't their full team, but it was still a good side in my opinion, and they did bring on the likes of Vardy and Tielemans in the second half. So I think we did well. All right, we took the lead, and they with a great goal from Zaha, I have to be said, I thought it was a great counter-attacking goal. Then they equalised in the last 10 minutes, so it was disappointing, but considering the circumstances, it stopped the rot. We got a point. To not get the clean sheet was really gutting, but we managed it in the next game against, albeit a really terrible Sheffield United side. Like, we were all worried before the game, like, Sheffield United, 16 without a win, Ryan Brewster, we nearly signed him. It's all set up for him to score against us and then to win a scrappy 1-0. And thankfully it wasn't the case. We did the job very, very well. We weren't outstanding by any means, and we were helped by how poor Sheffield United were, but we did the job. We shut them out, and we did boss the game, in my opinion. But I can't move on without talking about that Ebere Eze goal. I mean, my God, I hope that's up for the Puskas Award, like Son's was, because it's basically the same goal, albeit helped by some terrible defending, I will admit. But I mean, it's when you've got a player that can do that. Eze himself says he wants to be an entertainer. He wants to get people out of seats, and if he keeps doing that every game, then yeah, he's definitely going to do that. But yeah, great win for us.
It's a great finish from Eze. Don't get me wrong, but God, it was bad defending. It was like Eze was playing FIFA on beginner. And he was just running
semi-pro.
Yeah, it was a great finish. Great. I love the way he put the ball in the back of the net. Don't get me wrong, but God, it was such bad. I was just like watching a match today, and I was thinking, is someone going to tackle him? It was just like, gone after you, go on, you go through. And I think it was John Fleck who said I should just tackle him down. It was just kick him. Don't let him. It was awful. But no, fair play to Palace. It was a good performance. You've got the 3 points. In the group chat about Wilfried Zaha. And I'll tell you what, I've always said I do like Zaha, but I just think he must be. All you got to do is just wind him up, because he gets involved in stuff he shouldn't do. I just think just walk away and don't get involved, because I think if you're an opponent and you're against him, just keep in his ear for 90 minutes and wind him up, because you'll get a reaction out of him, and more and more you'll probably get himself sent off, because he gets involved in stuff. Of course he gets kicked because he's a very talented footballer. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, he does get involved in stuff he shouldn't. And that's just my opinion. But I think he just wastes himself for getting involved.
Yeah, well, it's hard not to disagree with that. I mean, I've always said he is the easiest player in the Premier League to wind up. Certainly up there. I know Andrew disagreed and said Mitrovic was easier, which fair enough, because Mitrovic is in a class of his own. But apart from him, I think that. Again, he's gotten red cards and yellow cards like before. The one that sticks out the most is Ward. He has a go with Ward Prowse, and Ward Prowse, it cleverly, in my opinion, Palace fans hate him, but he winds him up properly, and Wilf reacted to it and got himself sent off. So, it's hard if he just like you said. I understand his frustration, and it's showing passion and all that, but there's a time and a place for it, and he really does. With how much we rely on him as well, he really does. He does himself and does us no favours sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And with Mitrovic, I think he could start a fight in an empty room, Mitrovic. Honestly, I remember a game after Newcastle a couple of years ago, and he got sent off in the first 20 minutes, and he was just kicking people. It's just, what are you doing? But, Zaha, he's a talented footballer, and, I'd hate to see him waste his career by just getting involved in silly stuff. He doesn't need to, because he can do his talking.
I don't know if I'd go as far as wasting his carear, but yeah, I get what you're trying to say, yeah.
Yeah, no, he can do his talking with the ball when he's taking it around people and puts the ball in the back of the net and is a leader. When he gets himself involved in stuff, it just, kind of makes me want to go, what are you doing? Just don't stop it.
Yeah, well, okay then. Well, with this weekend's football done, we'll move on to the topic that's probably been in the news the most this week, the football news. That's the topic of Karen Carney. For those who haven't seen, she made some comments on, I actually forget which channel it was, but she was making comments about Leeds and essentially downplaying not only Leeds' season that they're having so far, but their title win from last season as well. Basically saying that the main point was that they only got promoted because of COVID and they weren't that consistent. Now, the Leeds official Twitter account responded to that and basically called her out on it and said, well, you're I haven't got the exact tweet in front of me, but it's like, making fun of her based on where they were now and thinking, do you want to run that by us again or something like that? And they got a lot of stick for it. A lot of people were saying, this is, it's not right to be calling her out like that. And, she has been the target of a lot of sexist abuse since then. The chairman even came out and, sort of made an apology for the tweet, saying that the rhetoric is right. Like we're gonna I think we're in the right to talk about pundits when they criticize us, but also it's stuff like that, the abuse like that is unacceptable, and we don't tolerate that as a club. Now, Andrew, you've actually already made a video about this, which we'll leave in the description below. Make sure you check that out. But I wanted to give you the chance to air your opinions on here as well, because you stood in pretty firm defense of Leeds and what they did.
At the end of the day, Leeds were responding to her comments, which were, to be honest, a bit disrespectful to Leeds. They dominated the Championship last year. She was implying that basically because the country went into lockdown and they had a break, that all their form was going to tail off. Before they went into the initial lockdown, Leeds had won 5 in a row, so they weren't tiring or anything. So the thing I have is, I agree it's not fair for her to get sexist abuse and everything like that, but it's also, it doesn't mean she can make lazy analysis and expect people to be softer on her. Because she wants to be treated, and then we want all women pundits to be treated the same as male pundits. So, like, Michael Owen has been criticised heavily for sometimes when he's made stupid points, like when he said Liverpool won the Europa League when they went to the final and lost to Sevilla, or the whole Graham Souness Pogba memes that we see. Who's the cause? Like, if they're asking Graham Souness, why can't we solve COVID, and he blames Paul Pogba. Constantly, these like male pundits get criticised, and I think Karen Carney, I agree, she shouldn't have any sexist abuse, and she shouldn't get any abuse, but she should be called out, saying, you're not. It's a bit lazy what you're saying, really, because Leeds dominated the league. She's actually a very good pundit. Most of the time when I've watched her, I think she's quite good, and she was. I mean, I only watched women's football in the major championships, and she was a very good winger for England. But this is a lazy point. It's like, and I think you see lazy analysis when it's teams outside the top 6. So I remember last year, Danny Mills was saying that Sheffield United were like very direct team, played long balls all the time in the championship, when he'd clearly not seen them play very often because they were a passing team at the time. So, at the end of the day, it's her job to give good analysis. And in this situation, she's made a mistake. People have corrected it. But, Leeds should apologize. People who've made sexist abuse against her should apologise. But people shouldn't apologise because they've shown that her point is wrong.
Yeah, Johnny, I know you had something to say about that as well. So do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with what she said, but I think what annoyed me the most, because some of the abuse that she got on Twitter is nothing short of disgusting, to be honest. And I think football is it is a kind of a male-dominated sport when it comes to pundits and stuff like that. And I think a lot of blokes, like a lot of blokes don't like the fact that women like Karen Carney and Alex Scott, some of their opinions are better than some of the blokes, and I think some blokes don't like it. And whether her opinion was right or it was wrong, that doesn't really matter to me. But it was the abuse, and it was just purely nasty abuse, and there was no need for it. And the fact she had to delete her Twitter because of idiots who just haven't really, they're idiots as far as I'm concerned. And I'm a big fan of Karen Carney. I think she's a great pundit, and she's on Match of Day 2 tonight. So. Yeah, it was just the abuse by idiot blokes who don't like the fact that women have got decent opinions on football.
So does that mean the one thing I worry about it is that it's going to become that any female pundit can make any point, but we can't criticise them then, and we can't say anything. Like, is that like what we should do then? Like, we should be softer and say that any woman pundit who makes a point which is incorrect factually or anything, because if I was a woman pundit, I wouldn't want that treatment either. I would want to be treated the same as a male pundit. Do you see what I mean? Because it's almost like now people are going to be like, no club generally after this or anything is going to criticize female pundits, because there's just going to be like, well, there'll be a backlash, negative PR, because Leeds have had a huge negative PR from this now. But if you look at their actual point, they weren't criticizing because she's a woman. They were criticizing her because she's made a bad point.
No, I totally get that. Yeah, no, I just think it was just the abuse that she got from the public. It was just a lot of nasty, sexist, horrible. There's just no need for it, just because of her opinion. And I think if it would have been a bloke who said it, there would have been half much reaction. I don't think it's just because she's a woman.
There would have been reaction. There would have been reaction. Rio Ferdinand made some stupid points last year about Newcastle, and all the Newcastle fans annihilated him on Twitter and everything.
Well, that's the thing. I think there's two sort of perspectives on this. There's the actual criticism itself, and there's what has come about of the criticism. In terms of, obviously, everyone in this show, it goes without saying that the sexist abuse that she received is unacceptable. No one condones it. Anyone that has to stoop to the level of making fun of the fact that she's a woman and doesn't deserve a place in the game because she's a woman, because they're so insecure about themselves, like Johnny said, that's not acceptable. But in terms of, you talked about that, like the fans criticised Rio Ferdinand, but it wasn't the fans that criticised her in this instance entirely. It was Leeds United themselves, the official Twitter account, that started that conversation. And so they must have they must have had some inkling in their head that was inevitably going to lead to a lot of unfair abuse as well from their fans, who were not going to listen to the whole point that they were making and just follow what their own account was saying as well. So, Dan, to bring you in on this, I suppose the sort of point is, when it comes to official accounts, do they have more of a responsibility to actually, try and stay out of this discourse as much as possible, in a sensible way? Like, a little bit of banter is fine here and there, but when it comes to digging out specific people and individual pundits, is that not something that we should just lead to the likes of Leeds Fan TV and people like that on Twitter? Like, where do you draw the line, basically?
Yeah, possibly. In general, I actually agree with Andrew on this point. I think you've got to be allowed to call out what is either incorrect or lazy punditry, which I think this was, to be honest with you. I spend a lot of time despairing with or calling out the likes of Michael Owen. Gabby Bonhall's one of the worst, in my opinion. He's dreadful.
Stephen Manaman to that list as well, if we could.
Yeah, exactly. Just the sort of people, I think, they get told something by somebody, and instead of looking at it themselves, they just take that opinion. Yeah. And you could tell them before the game that this is the way they play.
But is that sort of not what Leeds fans are doing with their account as well? They're looking at what their Twitter account is saying and sort of rolling with it, and not really listening to the criticism themselves?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I think in terms of the point on whether the club account should be doing it, I think it's probably best left. But this is the first instance we've seen of anything like this, so you learn from your mistakes, I suppose, don't you? Now, I think if it happened again tomorrow, I don't think Leeds would go down that avenue because of the backlash they faced. But in terms of what they initially did, they probably did it in a way, this is going to sound strange, out of naivety, thinking, we're just calling out a pundit, regardless of a sex, for what they've said. And it's wrong. It's a stupid thing to say. And it was. I don't think anyone in the right mind will sit there and say, we'll call her out, and we know she's going to get all sorts of abuse because she's a woman. That's wrong. And it's abhorrent, the abuse she got. There's no doubt about it. And it's wrong. But the actual point Leeds were making on the point she made, I quite agree with, to be honest with you. And I think, had it have been, I think Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was with her, and I think he agreed at the time, and had it have been him saying it, and Leeds would have done the same thing, there wouldn't have been the outcry there has been, which I'm not sure I agree with either, to be honest. But yeah, it's the first time we've seen something like this. Female pundits have had abuse in the past, but probably not to the same sort of level because it was a club's official account, but they probably should leave it be in future, like I say.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. Like, the core point Andrew is making is, you're right, we should be able to criticise pundits regardless of gender, and there are definitely people who it sort of weaponise that tweet in the sense of it was intended as sexist abuse from Leeds United. They're targeting her because she's a woman. It's complete nonsense in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, yeah, and you're right. We can't have this sort of extra protective shield over, like, just like we can't. We can't put them on a lower pedestal. We can't put them on a higher pedestal either. So there is a balance to be found there. But I also think that the thing that annoys me is that that's probably the first bit of criticism I've heard from Leeds by any major pundit this season. Every single other one that I've heard has been absolutely lavishing Leeds all season, the football that they play. I remember when they were in the Man United game, they were 4-0 down by half time, and all the pundits, this was before they scored the first goal at the end of the half, and all the pundits were talking about, they press so well and they could score at any minute and they play such great football. I'm sorry, you're 4-0 down against your big biggest rivals in the league before half time. Like, have you not got anything negative to say about them at all? Like, it does wane a bit. So that tweet to me from the official account, it did come across as kind of thin-skinned, I'm not going to lie. And I'm not, listen, I'm not, a lot of people get slated for, like, anti-Bielsa agendas. I genuinely like Bielsa as a manager. I think he has surprised me this season. I think he's doing better with Leeds than I thought he would. But, like, I think I find it rich that Leeds are trying to paint themselves as some sort of victims this season, because they certainly aren't for the media, in my opinion.
I think me personally watching Leeds, I enjoy watching Leeds, and I think that once Bielsa, at the moment, I feel they've got championship defenders. I think Cooper and Ayling and so forth. I think once they can improve those defenders and get maybe Premier League to top half Premier League quality centre backs and full backs, I think they will improve even more. Leeds aren't going to go down. So if you're not going to go down, you're not going to get into Europe, at least play with some free spirit and enjoyment. And I think most fans in that area between 8th and 17th would love Bielsa as manager, because all their games are entertaining. Like, yeah, against Spurs, they probably defended awfully and they were atrocious defensively. In that game, they probably did deserve criticism. But the other games I've watched, I've really enjoyed their free flow football, and it's refreshing to see rather than what Bruce does and what Hodgson does and what all the other managers do, where it's 4-5-1, hit on the counter attack, hope teams
4-4-2. Actually, I think you'll find. Don't knock the old favourites.
Okay, I think. I mean, to be honest, when you played against us, you were playing 4-5-1 pretty much. Anyway.
Yeah, that is true. I'll give you that one.
Roy Hodgson is I'm not good. Roy Hodgson does not play attractive football at all, I think.
Well, this does well. Now that we've perfectly segued into this conversation, so we will start it here. I thought this would be a good opportunity with the whole discourse that's going on about Leeds from the Karen Carney situation. We've talked a lot. Me and Andrew in particular have clashed a lot about this show in terms of style of play and how relevant it actually is. I wanted to ask the question, like, how important is it that a football side be entertaining? I mean, Andrew mentioned, I think you do make a good point that if you are mid-table and you're not going to go for a trophy or go for Europe, although I'd argue teams in that sort of 10th to 8th bracket sort of are in that bracket of being able to push for that position. So I think prioritising results is a bit higher up for them. But regardless, I think that, I think it is a good point. I think that any fan, listen, there's no fan in the country that would not choose good football over more straightforward football. Like I'm going to avoid the term bad football because I'm biased. But, even me, like, as biased supposedly am, like, would I take a manager like Marcelo Bielsa over Roy Hodgson? Absolutely. I'd love to see him as Palace manager. I'm not debating that at all. But personally, I don't give a toss how people think Palace play football. I really don't care how people view us as a team, as a neutral. I care about us. I get enjoyment out of us winning games. Like the West Ham game that I brought up last episode on Boxing Day. Pretty drab game of football, if I'm going to be honest. We didn't play that well. Yeah, I went home happy as Larry because we got a last-minute goal and we won the game and we got up to about 8th. So I think and the thing is as well, there's mid-table and then there's mid-table. Like if you're a team around that sort of relegation zone for most of the season, then you win your last 4 games and you finish 13th. There's a difference between that and a team who's sort of in 8th or 9th for most of the season and then loses their last few and ends up about 12th or 13th, like we did last season. So I think in that sense, like, that there is a balance.
George, what are Palace going to achieve? I'm really sorry, like, watching Hodgson football is so dull. Like, I'm so bored of
I don't care. I don't care what you think. Like, I'm more interested in whether or not we're actually gonna, whether or not we're gonna stay away from games.
11th, if you're not enjoying watching a nice.
I do enjoy watching us play when we win. I don't enjoy it when we bomb forward against Liverpool and give away so many chances and get battered. Like, I'd rather have played defensive football in that game because I think we've got a better chance of getting something.
Yeah.
Well, I'll bring in. We won't let this just be between us two. I'll bring in Dan and Johnny on this because you are both teams that have a history of both winning things and playing good football, particularly in Arsenal's case. Liverpool, it's varied a little bit more, but definitely more good than bad. It's safe to say. From an outsider's perspective, looking down on mid-table, and again, balance in terms of a consumer and a fan as well. Like, what are your views on the whole thing?
As an Arsenal fan, I mean, I love playing decent football, but at the same time, you don't get any extra points for playing nice football. I mean, I'll be quite happy as an Arsenal fan to go back to 1-0 to the Arsenal and win league titles, to be honest. It's all really good playing good football, but it doesn't get you results all the time. As much as under Wenger, we played some amazing football and we won things, of course. But and it was great. But at the same time, sometimes I do wish that we could go back to the old George Graham days. 1-0 to the Arsenal, shut up shop and win the game, get 3 points. That's the most important thing.
George isn't saying that. George is saying he's happy to be mid-table and playing crap football for forever because, he's going to win 9 games out of 38 and that'll be so exciting.
Yeah, no, hang on a minute. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying. Okay, that's a totally different debate in itself. That you should be
if you're mid-table and you're playing crap football, what's the point? If there's no point, if you're obviously, I'm not saying if you win the league playing crap football, like I don't know, like the Mourinho teams, like Mourinho at Inter and everything like that. Obviously, yeah, play crap football. You've won titles, but if you're going to come 9th to 15th or 16th in the Premier League, what is the point when watching crap football as well?
Because would you potentially finish higher playing that sort of football than if you tried to play more attacking? So for instance, like if you take the likes of if you take Marcelo Bielsa and you take say Graham Potter, now both of them are praised for playing good football. Now Marcelo Bielsa is a manager I would have over Roy Hodgson, no question, because I think he's doing good things with that Leeds team, like you said, and he does play better football. Now I would not take Graham Potter over Roy Hodgson for one simple reason: one of them gets results and one doesn't. That's the thing. I have no problem, like as long as a manager gets results, I don't care what style of play that they play. And like I said at the beginning, I understand, like I'm not a fool, right? I'm going to take playing better attractive football over Roy Hodgson's style of football. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but not at the cost of results. And I think that particularly in Graham Potter's case, this is someone who's hyped up as a good manager because he dominates the possession stats and the XG and all that. And yet Brighton is still in a relegation battle for the 4th season in a row. Like what I'm saying is that it's not worth sacrificing results for better football, because there is a chance, there's always a chance with Palace, with the structure that we have, that we can be dragged into that and go down. I mean, look at Frank de Boer. We brought him in to play this total football, Ajax style, pass from the back, 3 at the back, 3-4-3, all the sort of thing. Couldn't even score a goal. We bring in Roy Hodgson, anti-football extraordinaire. Ironically, in that first period, that first season he's in charge, we played the best football I've ever seen at Palace. So there clearly is a middle ground there, and I want to get Dan in on this because he hasn't had a word to say. I want to know what you have to say about this, Dan.
Yeah, I think your last point was probably the most poignant one in terms of being a middle ground. As much as I love watching Leeds, which were the catalyst for this conversation, they have no defence, and that is naive and a little bit not arrogant, because that's not fair. It's just the way he plays. But there has to be a balance. There has to be a fine line between just attacking constantly and having to. I don't think they've kept a clean sheet. I'd be surprised if they had. It's just mayhem when they play, which is great to watch, especially as a neutral. But in terms of me, I am an advocate of attacking football, personally. For instance, as from a Liverpool perspective, I wouldn't want my old mate Jose Mourinho to manage us. Because if you look what's happening with Spurs now, they haven't won a trophy for a long time. So a lot of them are like, I don't really care what it looks like. Let's just get wins. Let's win a trophy. And that doesn't wash with me, really, especially if in normal times you're going to be going to watch this every week. Now, if you're going to go and watch, I go to be entertained. Winning's great, obviously, but there's definitely an entertainment factor from where I'm sitting. There's nothing I love more than watching, like, brilliant football, especially if it's Liverpool playing it, obviously. You know what I mean? I don't want to go see my team, West Brom, for instance, against us the other day. Now, I get they've got to do it because West Brom against Liverpool, but if they go and do that against, I don't know, if they do that against Palace, 10 men behind the ball, maybe get a goal on the counter, I'd be thinking, why are we doing this? What's the point? You may as well stay in the Championship and win games at that rate, because that's not what football's about in my book. Like, staying in the Premier League is a huge money maker for football clubs, so I get why they do it, and they're almost forced to do it to try and stay in the league by whatever means possible. But if you gave me the option between attacking football and negative football, it's a no-brainer. Now, I get there's a risk involved in that, but I'd give me that risk all day long. I'd rather play beautiful football all season, finish top 4, than play terrible football and potentially finish second or even win it.
I mean, to be fair, I think there is, with Liverpool's case in particular, because you've already won the Premier League and won so many trophies, like, there's not, I think you have that almost that sort of luxury to be a bit more picky.
It's a difficult standpoint to be on.
Yeah.
With all due respect to everybody involved, because as a Liverpool fan, certainly historically we're blessed with trophies. So it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't really matter. But trying to speak as objectively as possible, I try and think of a good. Newcastle and Leeds are a very good comparison at the minute, because the two very big football clubs playing two very different styles of football. Now, they could both stay in the league. Say they finish 12th and 13th for this season, Newcastle and Leeds, with the same managers throughout the year. Leeds will have had a more enjoyable season, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be in Leeds' boat, and I suppose that's where Andrew comes in again. Like, would he rather watch Bielsa's football at Newcastle than Bruce's? Probably.
Would you rather come 10th, playing horrible football, 9th or 10th, playing the most atrocious football, counter-attacking, or finish, say, 13th, 14th, but having every game having 15 to 20 shots on shots?
And that's probably going to be the question between Newcastle and Leeds, like I say, at the end of the season. So, but I would probably take 14th with Leeds, to be honest.
Well, considering we've only had one top half finish in our history, I'm inclined to disagree there. But I mean, the thing is, the thing in terms of being
Hodgson has made you think that's the only way to play.
Well, first of all, Hodgson actually doesn't play like he doesn't always play like particularly against Leeds, ironically, like who would play this amazing attacking side. We thrashed them 4-1 and played really good stuff. West Brom as well. Man United, I thought we played some good. So we have definitely played better football than last season because we've got better players in the team. But me personally, I've never come home from a game that we've won that I've not been entertained. I don't care how bad the football is. If we win, then I'm entertained. Like, it doesn't matter. Now, admittedly, if we lose a game and we play shit football, it is much worse than if we play bad football.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing Swansea and you can see 2 goals in injury time, then that's a totally different ballgame. But other than that, like, I
think there's lots of really poor 1-0 games. I don't think that's true. You can watch a game and you can win 1-0 on the counter attack, last minute goal. Yeah, you're happy for that moment, but you haven't really enjoyed the game. Like, for instance, when we played you and we beat you 2-0, it was an atrocious game. I wasn't entertained. I was entertained for
isn't there something quite satisfying though about being the quote unquote worst team and then still nicking a game and getting to rub it in the other team's face? Like, because all the salt you see online about teams like Burnley as well, not belonging in the league and stuff like that, and they absolutely love it. That's part of their identity. They have the anti-football chant and all that.
But I'd rather watch, my team try and create something, enjoy 90 minutes of the game, than watch, oh, great, we've nicked it for 5 minutes. Because also it's not sustainable to win, to only play well for 5 minutes and nick it.
It's very true, though. But you don't get it. I mean, you can play well, but the main thing is winning football matches. Do you know what? I'd take winning 1-0 38 games a season and winning the league than playing good football.
Well, let's compare us to Brighton right now. I mean, because supposedly Brighton play much better football than us and have a much more progressive manager. They're in a relegation scrap. We're not that much higher above them, but we are much clearer of danger, and we play a lot worse football. I'd much rather be in our position right now. I don't care what anyone says.
I don't think Brighton are nice to watch. I've watched them quite a few times. I think they're that exciting to watch. I think there's a lot of...
I'm glad we agree on something at least.
I think they keep the ball.
Look at that, agree on something.
They keep the ball very well, don't they? But their actual end product in the final third is pretty dull, really.
But don't you think
I agree with that.
I like that. Lots of teams now, they look really good in the first 2/3, but when it comes to the final third, they don't actually... There's no nice passing or whatever. It's like... It annoys me when it's right back to centre back to left back to centre back. They just keep moving the ball side to side. There's no actual penetration with the passing.
I suppose it all comes down to end results, doesn't it? For instance, with this whole conversation looks a lot different. Spurs, for instance, to bring up Johnny's favourite club, they go and win the league this year. It's not going to happen, I don't think, to be honest. But say they did, and they play in the style of football they do, they don't care. They finish 5th playing that style of football. Questions are going to be asked at the end of the season. And it's the same down the bottom. Brighton go down playing this, getting the ball on the floor, pass it football. Brighton fans aren't going to be happy. If they finish 15th and they've played half-decent football all year, they'll be made up, won't they? And I think it does differ if you're spending God knows how much a week to go and watch it. This year, people have probably got a bit of a free pass. For instance, again, going back to Spurs, if people were paying God knows how much to go and watch them with London prices, then there might be a bit more unrest when they're playing this terrible sit back behind the ball, trying to hit people on the counter football. Whereas without fans in the stadium, Mourinho could do what he wants.
Absolutely, yeah, good point there.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of what gets me more than actual, the advocates for good football itself. Because like I see people, when Roy Hodgson leaves the end of the season, I see people, talking about the next Palace manager, and I see people suggesting names like Slaven Bilic. I was like, well, Slaven Bilic, he judged that terrible West Brom team that's gotten thrashed ever since he left. If they go down the season, it's almost certainly his responsibility. And I'm like, well, what the hell would you want with Palace? Like, oh, he plays good football. I was like, well, so what? If he's going to take us down, if he's going to drag us into a relegation battle, what is the point? I would rather be where we are now. And people say, like, I see Palace fans as well saying, like, well, I'd rather be in a relegation battle because it's just more exciting. I mean, that's an entirely separate debate. But, like, are these people mad? I understand being bored with Roy Hodgson's football. I'm not trying to say it's the best in the world. And let me be clear. Like I said, I would rather finish where we are playing Bielsa's football than Roy Hodgson's football because I'm not stupid. All right. But what I'm talking about is I would take Marcelo Bielsa because he can get results, not because he plays good football.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, the separate debate thing you mentioned there is a really interesting one. So I've often wondered with perennial mid-table clubs if they're satisfied. Like, sometimes I think, would you rather not be in the Championship and have a go at, like, the playoffs and promotion? Is that not better? You know what I mean? But it's one of them, and I suppose if teams see the Premier League as the holy grail and that's all that matters, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a debate that's going to go on to the end of time, I think. I mean, you see teams all around the world. I mean, even entire rivalries. Look at Super Clasico in Argentina, Boca Juniors, River Plate. I mean, that's part of that is based on their conflicting styles. You have River Plate who believe in playing good football and staying true to the beautiful game and all that sort of thing. And you have Boca who, win at all costs, sweat the shirt. Doesn't matter how scrappy 1-0 goal games is fine. Like, so it's always a fascinating conversation, and there's people are always going to be heated about their own ideologies and how they think the club should be run. And it does mix in, like Dan says, with the expectations of mid-table clubs and what they should actually be striving for. I think personally, as a mid-table club, I'd be much happier if we finished 8th or 9th playing Roy Hodgson's style of football than if we stayed where we are playing Bielsa's football. That's just me personally. I mean, I think thankfully the number of people who would rather go down playing good football is quite few and far between. So there's at least more to agree there. But yeah, well, we will move on. We'll move on to the Let's All Laugh At. And we mentioned Brighton before, and Graham Potter. I'm actually nominating him for the Let's All Laugh At because not only, I mean, the most publicised thing has been their home record in 2020, won one game at home all season. Palace won as many games at the Amex that year as Brighton did, and RB Leipzig won as many games in many home games against English teams that season or something like that than Brighton did. So I mean, again, that's the classic thing. Brighton sacked Chris Hughton. I don't think they're necessarily wrong to do that because I think they were on a downward spiral. But they did all this talk about playing, Graham Potter playing such progressive, beautiful football and storming the Europa League and all that with all these young players, and it hasn't worked at all. So as far as I'm concerned, it's I'm going to take what little victories I can get at this point. But it'll probably come back to bite me in about a month's time when we go there and lose 3-0. But for the time being, I'm going to revel in it.
Mm-hmm. Don't blame you. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, well, we've talked about Brighton already a little bit, so we won't go into that any further. But so yeah, we'll go on to you next, Andrew. Who have you got?
I kind of liked. I don't know if you guys have seen. I saw this Scott Parker was voted best dressed manager. I found that quite funny. And then there's this thing where he does this interview after I think they played Leicester, where they won Leicester away, and they've done like the streets rendition as he's talking. Oh, yeah. So it's so funny actually. It really. And I always love this time of the year where people's like Andy Carroll has scored more goals than Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo combined. I mean, those types of stats always crack me up. So, but I'd probably go for Scott Parker's streets rendition.
Yeah, Scott Parker thing's brilliant. I've seen that. Yeah,
I mean, in terms of Fulham themselves, they've had their past couple of games called off, most notably the Burnley one, which is very much a 6-pointer at this point of the season, I'd say. Some people argue it's a bit early for 6-pointers, but I don't think so. I think those teams are going to be in it from now to the end of the season. But they have put some form together, and I think they're going to be ruining the opportunity to not play these games, because I think it was particularly with Brighton's form, it was a real opportunity for them to pull away, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you ask Scott Parker, I'm sure you'd rather have the points on the board than have your games called off.
Yeah.
I think they might, because they've had more recovery time. Fulham aren't in Europe, they're out the League Cup as well. It might be good for them to play these games later on, especially against Spurs, because Spurs probably will be in the Europa League and have lots of games when these games are rearranged. So it might turn out it's a good time it might not affect them as much because the other team might have more cramped fixtures at the time it's rearranged for.
Yeah. Well, we'll go on to you next, Dan. What have you got?
It's quite topical, actually. We spend quite a lot of time talking about clubs' official Twitters. And Spartak Moscow is my nomination. I don't know if anyone has seen Spartak Moscow's Twitter, but it is an absolute joy to behold. Basically, they are on the right side of the banter sort of thing. So anytime pretty much anything happens in world football, they're on it. And this week they messaged Lionel Messi, just saying hi, Leo.
I've got it up now. I've just seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, just saying hi, Leo. To which Lionel Messi responded, no. Now, I think, the general consensus is they were kind of, because he obviously potentially leaving, and he can speak to clubs now from the 1st of January. So Spartak Moscow are messaging just to strike up a conversation.
Yeah.
But and just now, after the Chelsea game, there's a clip going around of Frank Lampard urging supporters to support someone else. I don't know if you've seen it. And then Spartak Moscow replied to that and said, "We welcome all Chelsea fans." So yeah, mine's Spartak Moscow because they're quite good fun actually for a Russian football club. They're quite good fun.
Can I throw in Frank Lampard into my Let's All Laugh at as well? Because they've lost 4 of the last 5 now, and his signings are turning out to be huge flops. So I think I don't think he's going to last. I think Abramovich might sack him in the next couple of games.
Well, the Athletic have reported they are considering the manager's position. That was just after the game, so it could well be gone quicker than we think.
I think he's going to rue going into that job so early. Because I think if he had 3-4 years experience, he might have done better. But going in with just 1 year in the championship, it's just not enough, really.
Yeah. Who would have thought that taking Derby all the way from 6th to 6th and appointing him based on sentiment was a really bad idea? I mean, I'm sure Johnny can share my sentiment on this one, but all them Chelsea fans slating Arteta for being appointed with no experience, whilst licking Frank Lampard's shoes all this time. I think all I can say is karma.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Chelsea, I did watch the game, listen to it on the radio, and by all accounts, Man City were. In the first half, it could have been 6 or 7. But yeah,
I kind of wish it was, to be honest. Take the heat off us a little bit, but there you go. I'm the one that keeps bringing it up every chance I get, so I guess it's my fault.
Yeah, Chelsea. I mean, their signs like I'm not performing. Timo Werner, he can't seem to score a goal at the moment. It was kind of strange, really, because Aubameyang went 10 games without a goal near enough, and a lot was made out of it. No, he's not good enough. He's not this. He's lost it. Timo Werner's got many goals recently, and it seems he doesn't get as much stick. So it's always nice to rub it in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what I guess that leaves you then. What have you got for your Let's All Laugh at?
I've actually, I was going for Chelsea, but I'm actually going to go for your mate Dan Burn at Brighton because he had an absolute shocker against Wolves.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, everything that could have gone wrong for him went wrong. I mean, he might as well just got sent off as well while he was at it. He gave away that corner for the equaliser. Was it the first goal? Then he gave away a penalty. And then scored an own goal. He had a terrible game.
It was bad.
If you're a neutral or a Wolves fan, he had a great game. But he was just everything that went wrong could have gone wrong. Went wrong for him.
Yeah, you know that saying, there's a tweet for everything? I saw a Brighton account, all the way back in June, saying that, touting Dan Burn for England. I mean, for fuck's sake, Lewis Dunk was bad enough. And I'm just glad they've been made out to look like I'm sorry, that is just moronic. I'm glad they've been showed up for what they are with that after tonight, because I
presume they meant England basketball.
Yeah. I mean, even Ryan that we had on the podcast, he got a lot of stick from his fellow Brighton fans because he doesn't rate him that much, and apparently he is in the know. Apparently we've got the right person on. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I'm not much of a Dan Burn. I think the only player from Brighton that I don't mind is that Tariq Lamptey, a decent player, but is he injured or something? Doesn't matter.
He's injured, yeah. I think he's out for the next month or so. Yeah.
Yeah, but apart from that, they're a poor side.
Bissouma's alright in midfield.
Bissouma's been linked with Real Madrid.
Oh, for God.
Yeah, I mean, my God. I think Bazuma is a good player, actually. I do try to be fair with Brighton, and I think I actually would. I'd take him in Palace's midfield. I think he'd do a decent job. But Real Madrid, come on. Man United was bad enough, but.
Yeah, how the mighty have fallen, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Wow. I mean, Real Madrid, they could.
That's a big praise there, George. I'd take him in our midfield. Wow.
God. Roy Hodgson's anti-football. Oh man.
What a big step up for him that would be.
To be fair, it could be a whole league at the start of next season. But yeah, in terms of, I think there's one clear winner for me, and that's got to be Spartak Moscow. I mean, I really love. There's a lot of foreign Twitter accounts. I think it's Bayer Leverkusen is the other one that are really good. I think Roma as well. I think there's a lot of foreign English Twitter accounts, because obviously they've got the ones in the native languages.
Yeah.
They've got the English versions as well, and there's some really good I mean, clubs with a lot of foreign clubs with a lot of great banter out there. And I think that one, like, so quick in succession as well. So much of it, like, I think it's great.
Yeah. Hi Leo on the 1st of January.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's just about all we've got time for. So thanks for listening to this episode. Be sure to drop us a like and a follow, whatever platform you're on. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify at Let's All Laugh at a Football Podcast, as well as Twitter at LALA_podcast. Be sure to check out Dan's work on Last Word on Football and Read Liverpool. Be sure to check out Life's a Pitch. Be sure to check out Andrew's channel, where you can hear him talk about the Karen Carney situation in a bit more depth in his latest video. Be sure to check out all our social media. Links to all of them are in the description, as always. Thanks to Dan, Johnny, and Andrew for joining me. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.